All right, welcome to the show. Today I have my friend and special guest, Gemma Liberty, and I just have to tell you something right off the bat. Gemma's name is part of what drew me to her. Um, so first of all, Gemma, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much.
And Gemma and I are new friends, but there is this feeling that our souls have known each other. Um, So I'll just give a little backstory and then I will invite you to share anything you want to about yourself, Gemma. But um, to me, this is where creativity and intuition really, they're the same thing. So last year, 2025, in February, I joined a program and it was for a coaching program. And I knew that I wanted to connect with at least one or two people that I could go through this program with and talk and kind of, work through some things together. And so as the list of participants started coming out and I would see these things in the big chat and the big feed, I just followed my intuition and I saw Gemma's name and I saw where she lived, which happened to be a place I had just looked up to find out more about. Like, I mean, how odd is that? And yet there are no accidents. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to her. And so I did. And that was the start of what has come to be a really amazing, creative unfolding. Um, so Gemma, I just invite you to start with whatever you want people to know first. Anything about you or anything about what I just spoke to.
Yeah, I always reflect on how we met and how, that just, for me, it's just confirmation and speaks to alignment when things are supposed to happen and supposed to come together. So I'm glad you reached out. Um, I I'm a former school teacher and lover of all things education. It was especially the creative freedom when we had it in education that drew me, that I just loved. And now that I am, semi-retired, creativity kind of being channeled in some new directions that I couldn't have anticipated. But yes, just fellow soul, kind of feeling more into myself and getting to know myself better, um, and learning all the lessons that come with that.
Yeah. So these creative openings, I kind of feel like that's part of what drew us to connect is that we were, and jump in if I am speaking, misspeaking to how um, this occurred for you, but I kind of feel like we were both on this path of openness, joining this program at this point in life. Um, and I know we're both believers in possibility. So here we are, and we find ourselves walking this path together. So this whole episode, I'm just inviting the audience to let yourself lean into those nudges when you feel the nudge to reach out to someone, when you feel the nudge to start something, when you feel the nudge to whatever, um, that kind of mystery and where it can lead. And so we started to feel ourselves, kind of walking side by side on this path, um, in this container with this coaching program that has so much to do with personal growth, but also being open, becoming aware, accepting, and aligning. And so as we were walking this path, things started to unfold for us about curiosities and creations, and maybe something we would create together. Um, I'd love to hear from your perspective too. Like, what was your perspective on this evolution early on? And
Yeah. So a few years back, I had a little bit of crisis. Some people would call it dark night of the soul, major change, which was the reason for joining this coaching program where we met, just to learn more about myself and then maybe help others. And yeah, oh, awareness. Um, I've always considered myself a person who has been very self-aware, and yet it hasn't been until recently that I feel like some of the film has been lifted, and truly seeing things. Um, and I think for me in the journey, it was the acceptance part, acceptance of things about myself, things about the world, and that resistance that was and is sometimes the toughest part. And I feel like our creativity is wrapped up in that level of acceptance.
mm,
Um, and wow, aligning is fairly new for me. It involves more trust than I usually give. But it has become my way now, and I feel like a different person.
mm, yeah. So, part of what we have spoken to when we get together is about this mirror, like how we get to kind of be a mirror for one another. And I think there's a lot within creativity that can be learned and played with when
Mm.
there's that perspective of life being a mirror and the people in your life being mirrors. And as Gemma and I, we're growing our friendship, we're working through this program together, um, getting to know one another just from right where we're at. Like, no past stories, no, as we've spoken before, like, it wasn't that we knew each other through work. It wasn't that we knew each other through family or anything like that. It was just really this kind of clean slate, this blank canvas. And from that, I feel like there's a really beautiful nugget in there too about those times when we can approach life as clean and clear as possible. I know we all bring stuff with us, and I know we all have lenses that we look through, but just another thing that I would invite people to be open to is there anywhere in life that you can come with a really clean and clear view? Um, and so, kind of from that jumping off point, is there anything you would say to that, Gemma, about um, what you've recognized in how we kind of intentionally have been creating this friendship and then now this business together, which we'll get to more in a moment, but
Yeah. We've talked about the fact that, my most of my friendships usually came from work because that's where I was most of the time.
Mhm.
And, once you leave, once you retire, you recognize so many of those were anchored in the place that you were
Yeah,
at, and they very pretty quickly dissolve when you leave. And sometimes for me, it was jarring on a few of those friendships that I truly thought were um, had transcended the space.
yeah,
And so when we became friends, it was interesting because we didn't go into narrative. We didn't go into, here's my story, here's your story, here's our commonalities. None of that. We just kind of started diving into these conversations about who we really are and what's alive in us today and what's coming up. And um, interestingly, as we've learned about each other, we realize just how similar we are and all of those things. But yes, that came from such a clean space, I guess. Wasn't fully aligned. It was aligned,
yeah,
I
yeah,
would. Um, and as far as building things, I was the creative classroom teacher, loved that part the most when I was able to do that and then deliver and see how it landed with kiddos and all that. And then when that was removed, trying to build um, something of my own, it's funny. I found that looking back, I put pressure on my creations that were a mirror to the pressure and constraint I always put on myself. How will other people view it? Is it pleasing? Is it of supreme service? Is it, and that's a struggle.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's such a great point to drop in right here is that, you know, so often we feel ready to start something new. And sometimes it's a really definable point. Like, okay, I'm leaving this job, or, I'm retiring from this profession. And for both of us, it was then going into entrepreneurship. And we have a choice about taking the same framework with us without really knowing. And just like those pressures that you spoke to about the pressures we put on ourselves and um, that, so it can take us a while to recognize, like, and same way with a creative project, we might go into something playing by the same rules that we just, even for, as an example, okay, I'm
Mhm.
going to do watercolors here. Oh, and now I feel like I want to write a book. And, whatever constraints or rules or whatever we've put on ourselves, we often carry those with us unknowingly. And I know we've each spoken to this a bit about this journey into entrepreneurship, but is there anything you'd like to share about that sense of stepping into something new and starting to, or any processes that have helped you release some of that old conditioning or old patterns or,
Yeah, so I started creating a business, an idea about 9 years ago now. And it really wasn't until a year ago that it landed on what feels absolutely right. Um, and so I was acting like the audience. And when I was creating, now that I look back and putting so much pressure on this creation, if it was a work of art, it would have it would have been colored in the lines. Every stroke and color would have been critiqued by me. It's not quite right. That's not. So, yeah, I was in the middle, what felt like the gooey, messy middle for a really long time. And when things are messy, I think at least I tend to judge myself, like maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or maybe this isn't my thing, or um, or why are all of these different and strange ideas coming into my head? Some don't even make any sense. And um, when I look back, if I had simply allowed more of just put fewer expectations on myself and just allowed kind of like a free messiness. But when you're in the mess, you think, this is messy. Clean. I want this part over. I want it cleaned up. I want the idea to be clean and clear and square. And so I can put it where it needs to go. Um, but the mess also has a woven into it, your level of acceptance of self. And when you're working in a container, like being a public school teacher, it's all you just have to walk in and follow the rules and pull out your personality here and there. And when you're creating something of your own, it feels like so much more pressure when there's so much more space. For some reason, I constricted. Um, and yeah, the evolution of the business and my creations have they're interwoven into my own personal evolution, my acceptance of self, my acceptance of the things that I'm really good at, which you don't feel necessarily allowed to say, you know, um, you remain humble, keenly aware of all the things you're not good at, and just, yeah, I would say that being an entrepreneur has been the hardest, most exciting thing that I've ever done, and it has grown me like no other.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to speak to what your original kind of umbrella maybe business is? And then we'll go into how this co-creation that we've been working on has come together too.
Absolutely. So I built Evolve Education with just the idea that I had been in education for so long. I wanted to give back, and I still have such a passionate love for it that I always did. And so I landed on this idea that the data that we currently deal with in schools, proficiency and growth and standardized types of data are really no longer working and never quite did. Now with the age of AI, now with things, feeling a little bit different out there, and individuals and children and parents uh, wanting their children to be seen
Yeah.
for who they are, and this idea that AI will be able to, do all of this. And so the original intent of education was to create workers. Well, now, what's happening now is interesting. So the business is about strengths and weaving in Clifton strengths and learning strengths and all of that into data for schools so that they can, become strengths focused and have individualized data on students that's more human than standardized.
Mm. I think that's such a beautiful, to use a word in your business title, such a beautiful evolution from your background in education and um, to how you would want to serve. So, a part of what I just have to add this in here too, a part of what Gemma and I play with too is these things that we enjoy. So strengths, we talk about strengths, and she's seen my strengths from the Clifton Strengths Finder, and I've seen hers, and as well as part of the language that we play with together is a little bit of Enneagram.
Mhm.
Gemma is getting certified in the in Enneagram program, and I took some astrology just this past year, so we kind of giggle together that we're both these earth signs, and Gemma is a Virgo in particular. And so all of that comes together as strengths. And so your particular view on, you have such a heart, you have such a heart for education. And we have this is another one of the things we've had in common is being a teacher. And then also really, we wove this in through the idea of entrepreneurship, but both of us have a real, and I think this is a human desire to feel more freedom, whatever that means for every individual, to feel less confined. And yet we come up against some of those edges that we spoke of earlier, because all we know moving forward is to take our past into the future, and breaking down the walls of what we've known, it can be a little uncomfortable. So there's this beautiful, beautiful story about the dragonfly that Gemma spoke to me after seeing and hearing about how this worked, um, which then spurred on this idea of dragonfly school. Do you want to tell a bit of the story about the how the dragonfly comes to be?
Sure. It's so funny because we all know about the butterfly, and the cocoon, like we're taught that as kids. And I was just so surprised that I didn't know how dragonflies came to be until I heard that they actually start out underwater as nymphs living very different lives in the mud and the silt, right? And what happens is they live most of their lives that way. And one day they decide, for whatever reason, to climb up a tall piece of grass, a reed, and now they're in the air, a completely different element. And they cling to that reed, and the sun starts to transform them. And they have all of these hydraulics going on inside. They're being complete. I mean, talk about goo, the mess, right? They completely start to transform. They then grow these like wings that are wet and are heated by the sun. And the process is just so grueling, sounds like. And then one day their wings dry and they go from being this creature that lives underwater into this iridescent dragonfly. And the story just hit me because it feels like my story. Just so very long underneath water, surviving so long, um, just living. And then one day something happens, and then all of these other things happen. And then now just feeling feeling into my wings, feeling into this light, this expansiveness, this spaciousness, this love for myself. Um, Feeling the air, feeling the sun, and feeling like I'm a completely different person.
Yeah. I thanks for sharing this story. When you first told me that, I had no idea either about a dragonfly. I knew nothing about, I knew that I loved them. I thought they were cool. I knew nothing about how they came to be. And even as you were telling that story just now, I get goosebumps every time I think about, every time I hear the story. And I feel like it's such a, I think so many of us could relate, like, living where you think it's just that's all there is, right? So you're going along at the bottom of the water and you're looking down. I'm just imagining that they're kind of like looking down. And there's limits there. There's a lot of limits there. And it's dark. And then one day, whatever possesses you, and I'm sure people can relate to this, like sometimes something happens in life and you're like, what is going on? Why am I doing this? This is so not like me. And they start to climb the stalk and imagine the bright sunshine. And oh my goodness, what is going on? And what is air? Oh my goodness. Um, and so I don't remember the exact moment, but I know it was shortly after you spoke of that story that then this idea was birthed for us about co-creating this dragonfly school
Yeah.
and taking all of these things, just like all of you do with your whatever way, shape, and form you relate to creativity. You take the things that you feel comfortable and good at, and then maybe you add a few new things and you design something. And so um, that's what we have been doing. We have been creating, crafting, drafting, playing with um, what Dragonfly School is,
Mhm.
what it knowing that there can and will be different shifts and learnings as we go. But yeah, we just really wanted to share this co-creative, how things can come together in co-creative ways that might really surprise you. And we are kicking off Dragonfly School in early 2026. And we kind of have modeled it after the dragonfly evolution. Do you want to speak to the anything you want to share about Dragonfly School? And yeah,
Sure. I think this is the first thing that I've ever created that I was extremely patient with, extremely accepting of when the ideas dropped in and when they didn't. And so I think co-creating with you has really helped that instead of, creating alone, which is a different energy. So very, very much appreciated. I think the big thing for me is transformation can feel like a death. It can feel uh, it can feel very heavy. There's a lot going on. It's very confusing. It's disorienting, and above all, in my opinion, it's lonely.
yeah,
It's not something that you can talk about with too many people. And, I've become a lot more woo, become a lot more compassionate and patient. And it is because of this whole process. And so I think Dragonfly School is is just a place for people to land. We can't um, go through it, for you. The all of the hydraulics and change and the goo and the forming of your wings and all of that. We can't do it for you, but we can certainly and have been building a container that can hold you where you're seen, where we can speak the same language, where we're safe, and where we feel like there are other people who understand this messy process that we're going through and why.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. As you were speaking, I had this visual of, because I agree, it's the sense of community. I know that's so important to us about Dragonfly School. I had this vision of, a dragonfly starting crawling up the stalk, getting into the air, and even if for a second, just happening to maybe look around. And it's just like with us, if we see one other, even if we're not sure what's going on with us, but we happen to look over and we witness something going on with another, we might feel like this is okay. We might feel like, oh, maybe that's what's happening to me. I can't see it. I have my own blind spots. I'm not sure, but I see over there, there's wings forming. Wow, so that's kind of this vision that I had for all of this, like, knowing that there are others in a similar, maybe a little different, one a little further ahead, one a little further behind, but all just perfect timing and normalizing
Mhm.
and really being those mirrors for each other, being seen in your tender becoming,
Mhm.
yeah, and the beautiful unfolding, yeah.
Yeah, to have a witness. You've witnessed a lot of my growth in the
Mm,
past year
yeah, yeah,
is is pretty priceless.
yeah,
Um, because we don't always notice ourselves what our patterns are,
yeah,
what we might not be seeing.
yeah,
And so, yeah, this idea dropped in. I think the story came at a perfect time when we could both relate to it, and the metaphor has stuck
yeah,
on our journeys. And the wonderful thing I think about Dragonfly School, Amy, is we would build it regardless
yeah,
because it's what we want and need,
yeah,
and we just want to open the doors for anyone else who might need that sense of comfort
yeah.
and community as well.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Mm, thank you so much, my friend. Um, as we'll have more in the notes below if you want to learn more about Dragonfly School. Um, is there anything else as we wrap up, Gemma, that um, people may not be listening to this at the beginning of the new year, but just even that any messages that are coming through for you, just about this time and space, what people might be feeling, anything that you want to share.
Yeah. What's been coming through for me is this idea of purging and shedding
Mm,
things that no longer feel aligned, no longer feel right. Just in the form of things, ideas, ways in which I would usually react to something or things I would usually do. And so just the idea of continually letting things go um, in the smallest ways, if it feels big or or not doable, letting go the most minute part of something that doesn't serve you anymore and allowing space.
Mm,
I think things don't come in unless they have room
yeah. Yeah.
to come in, and oh, I want so much room for 2026
Mm,
for so much goodness to come in. And
yeah.
so that would be, yeah, that would be what's coming in for me. And hopefully we're all, hopefully we're all making space
Yeah.
for what wants to come into our lives.
I love that. Create space, start fresh. And I just want to share something that Gemma and I always, when we get on Zoom together, our first question to each other is, what's alive? So we don't have to go with old stories. We can go with what's now. And mm, beautiful. Thank you so much, my friend. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here, everyone.